So the web can be this amazing place where we can collaborate with each other and we can express ourselves and be creative. It is so connected with our lives, and we can use it for work, academic research, or for our personal lives to socialize, and all kinds of things. And we as developers, we are pushing this development forward at a rapid pace. And can you imagine what we'll be doing in 20 years with all these technologies we're developing? Now, this sounds very exciting, but what if I tell you that we decided not to invite you, that you're not allowed to participate? And that would feel awful. And we don't want to leave people out. So we actually want to empower people with web technologies and these emerging web technologies. And today we'll be discussing about digital inclusion, about the speech recognition API, and the necessary skills to combine them both. But first of all, my name is Mauricio Palma. I was born and raised in Costa Rica, and I've been living for the past 11 years in the beautiful city of Hamburg. I'm also a product engineer at SinnerSchrader, focusing mostly in UI development and user experience. And I've been working there for the last 4 years, and some very exciting projects. And one of them would be, for example, Alva. Alva is an open source collaboration tool for designers and developers. And basically what we do at Alva is we allow designers to draw interfaces with the same components we developers create. So they actually have the living components in their layouts and their compositions. I work a lot too with design systems, and actually part of one of the design operations teams for one of our clients, and working doing component composition for to be compliant with corporate identities of our customers. And if that's not enough, I also have a side project, a family business, together with my partner and wife, and that is Wood Like Ocean. And at Wood Like Ocean, we create swimwear out of ocean recovered fishing nets. And it is very exciting for us because we are allowed to experiment with waste as a main ingredient for our products. And it is what I think personally the future of consumer goods. But we're actually not here to talk about that. So, one second. I consider myself a very fortunate person, and I'm very grateful to do the things that I love to do, and sometimes doesn't even really feels like work. And being a developer is something that I love so much. You know, it is about the aesthetics, the creativity, writing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the love for the challenges, and the love for the grind and the gratification when you get a project to make it go live. And that's all great, but what I have realized in later years in life is that my work shouldn't only be for my self-gratification. Maybe we should start doing something for a greater purpose. And please don't get confused about the name of this talk. It is not actually a struggle between accessibility and web APIs. It is a catchy title, that's why I use it, but it is on the contrary. It is the collaboration of both that will guide us in this journey on how to create more empathic and more inclusive web applications. And I would like for us to have a clear picture in the room about accessibility knowledge. So I will tell you 3 scenarios, and I want you to please listen carefully. And if any of them apply to you, so listen first, and then we will talk later about what should we do with that. And the first scenario is you have heard of accessibility before. You know it is important, but you really never had the chance to work on a project or to implement accessibility. Or the second scenario would be that you have been working in a project for months, and then just before go live, you get the requirement, suddenly the site needs to be accessible. And if you have experienced that, you know how painful that can be. And the third and my favorite one is, you know how important accessibility is. You actually advocate and work for it in your projects, just to hear from stakeholders or decision makers that it is not important because it is not relevant for the target market. Or you get to hear something, and this is my favorite, is like, I think you should be using your time in something more useful. And this is more or less the time where my brain goes exactly like that. It's like, what? So if you have heard, if any of those 3 scenarios has applied to you, I want you to please raise your hands. And don't be shy, we're not being judgmental. And then take a look about keep them up and take a look. So pretty much half of the room, which is great, and the other half, there's a need for us to talk more about accessibility. And for me, I have experienced both of them in one way or another. And it is our duty to still spread awareness and to implement accessibility. Because we as web professionals, we have a collective responsibilities for the interfaces we build, for the applications we build. And even if we are aware of not, we need to be mindful and empathetic in all aspects of our work. Think about it for a second. We work in the tech industry. We have seen hundreds or even thousands of web applications. We have gone through tons of user flows, and we're acquainted with the whole terminology. And the point here is that we as web developers, we will figure our way out in any interface, no matter how badly designed it is. But this is not how the rest of the world interact with our applications. This is just us. Oops. OK, there was something missing there. But we'll jump to the events. So there were 2 events in my life. Unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way. And there were 2 events in my life that made me realize about the importance of accessibility and inclusive design. And the first one and the most painful one was a family issue. We had in the family my wife's uncle. He was found on the floor unconscious and dehydrated. And probably he was laying on the floor for a couple of days. And today we're very happy he's doing well. But you have to think he's an elderly person. And he relied on the web for pretty much anything. He would get his groceries or buy some pastries for coffee dates with the family, or get his finances done. And this was very important for him living alone. And after his hospital release, he's given me a call. And for you to give you some context, he was diagnosed with poor vision and a slight memory loss. And when he was released, he was trying to order some groceries, and he's calling me, Mauricio, I think my computer is broken. Can you please help me? So we went over there. I checked his computer, and everything was working fine. So I asked him if he could please show me what was the problem. And that was the moment that really opened my eyes and made me realize that he couldn't figure out, he couldn't recognize an add to cart button. He couldn't make a difference between copy text and an input field, so he couldn't navigate through the site at all. And this was very sad, and it made me realize about how irresponsible I was being with my work as a developer. That the interfaces that I have been developing so far were not accessible enough. And we can actually make better use of the current accessibility tools to help people like my wife's uncle get things done online. And we can even go further and take advantage of some of the latest APIs to really create an open place for everyone. But before breaking out the code editor, we need to step back for a second and give us space, even if we don't like it, and think about the following things. And the first one is, as trivial as it might sound, is we need to challenge our mindset every single time we start a project. It is not about us trying new technologies or trying new coding paradigms, which are important, don't get me wrong, but the underline or the baseline is to include as many people as possible in the applications we build. And something very important too is that we need to be aware that we tend to use our own experiences of the world when we design new applications. But to be inclusive, we need to open ourselves to new perspectives and distance ourselves from our own bias. And let us apply empathy as a way to gain insights on how to improve our web applications. So we have been hearing nowadays a lot about empathy, and it is not only a great skill, but it can be an amazing tool for research. And it can be trained. It can be trained. And empathy is all about understanding and trying to understand someone else's feelings and experiences and thoughts, and we try to see the world from their point of view. And not only users benefit from being empathetic, our coworkers, stakeholders, when we try to understand their point of view, we are able to understand the position of others, and everyone benefits from that. And let us be curious. Let us explore with genuine curiosity the full range of human diversity. And this will allow us to include more people, and it helps us bond with people we never thought before. And a great thing about curiosity, too, is that if that's not enough for you, it makes us feel happy. Researchers have found that when our brain encounters new things, it releases dopamine. So it makes us feel good. So there's benefits on it, too. And collaborate with all the mentioned skills and use them as tools with our teammates. And let us take it even to the next level and educate others about the importance of accessibility and inclusive design in our web applications. So I think we covered the necessary skills that we need to actually be empathetic and think about accessibility. And we can slowly dive into the technical implications of it. And of course, cover what does the web APS has something to do about it. But what I have observed among us developers is that accessibility seems like just a checklist, like a recommendation list given by the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines that we need to implement. And a lot of times, it feels like our attitude towards browser web development for all their browsers, like something that we do at the end, only because it isn't absolutely necessary. Do you know that feeling when you have to check your website in an older Internet Explorer? You know, the time has come, and you have been working on this site, and OK, now it is the time for me to check it in Internet Explorer. Think about it for a moment. And we as humans, we try to avoid problems we don't understand. And probably one of the reasons why accessibility is sometimes being perceived that way. But what if we start considering accessibility and inclusiveness as technical concerns of our application, as a core layer or as a set of features? And for example, there's an estimated 119 million people with hearing problems in Europe. And there's an estimated of 360 million people worldwide who are deaf or has hard of hearing problems. And that's about 5% of the population. And every single day we deny access to these people, to our lives, socially and professionally. And during my research, I found this great app who try to approach what I'm telling you right now. And I would like to show you what they are doing. And maybe it is important. I'm not associated with them. I just think their work is awesome, just as it's a disclaimer.
I am deaf.
I am hard of hearing and I'm pretty good at reading lips. When there's too many people, though, this can get really tough. Sometimes I can't understand.
People talk so fast. It can be pretty overwhelming. When there's too much going on, Ava is awesome to see what people say. With one tap, I invite people, and they join me with their phones.
I need Ava to attend meetings at work.
Follow what the teacher says in class.
I won't understand people when they forgot to look at me. Ava will translate just about anything for me.
Well, almost everything.
That's so inspiring, right? And when I saw this, I thought, wow, that's kind of the kind of work I would like to be doing as a developer. It is so meaningful, but I think the main thing here is that by recognizing exclusion and being empathetic to deaf and hard of hearing people, Ava was able to come up with a solution which is meaningful and include people in our daily lives. And the great thing is that we can do these kind of things on the web natively today. And today's browsers offer a whole set of functionalities written in JavaScript that it allows to make us all kind of things with them. And the last couple of years, I have been experimenting a lot with device-oriented browser APIs like audio, device orientation, geolocation, among others. And it allows us to interact frictionless with the device. So it is very powerful. You should try that out. And I strongly believe that all of these web APIs have a lot of potential to be used to include more people in our web applications. And if I could wish something today from this presentation for you to take home, is to go and experiment with them and try to include more people in your web application. So if I could make a wish, I wish that you tried one of them. And an example of what you can do with that would be, for example, an ambient light. And the ambient light, we could use it, for example, in my wife's uncle case. We could use the ambient light API to increase the readability of an application. And we can offer the most effective color contrast, which would be 4.5 to 1 for larger text and 7 to 1 for smaller text. So automatically, we would be doing a AAA accessibility compliance by thinking about that. And the punchline is that by knowing the interrelated conditions in which the user is interacting with our applications, we are able to provide more meaningful user interfaces. And that's the beauty about being inclusive, is that when we solve a problem for one person, we can extend it to many other persons. So everyone benefits from being empathetic. And if you remember, I mentioned there were 2 events in my life, and the second one was quite of a funny one. Like, I had a sport accident, and I dislocated my arm, and I couldn't move it for a couple of weeks. So the doctor gave me a 2 weeks notice, and I was feeling fit. I wanted to code. I wanted to work. So I came with do you know the keyboard dictation tool from your Mac? Yes? Have you tried it? It works beautifully. It is amazing. Like, you can really work with it. And I suddenly recognized the enormous potential of the speech recognition API. So by allowing us to control our web application through voice, we can open our application to a lot of other people. We can be inclusive to people towards with vision impairments or with literacy problems. So we can include way more people, even with a permanent disability. And the Web Speech API has been around since 2014, and it's been baked natively in the browser. And it enables us to include speech recognition and synthesis in our applications. And we will be covering how to include voice in a demo application I built for this talk. And we will try to handle accessibility and inclusion as the main concerns of the application. And I will show you how to do that at a technical level. And in order to give you a practical example, I wrote this small application, and basically what it does is, I love listening to music, so the logical thing would be, okay, I'll get all my Spotify playlists, and I can navigate with them, or I can interact with them. And this is an example of how you would usually interact with the app. And I did that using the Spotify's Connect Web API. If you haven't tried it yet, it is amazing. It lets you play the music in any device where you have Spotify. So it is a lot of fun, too. And to include speech recognition to the video example I just gave you, we need to do a little bit configuration that I would like to do with you together. And the speech recognition receives speech through the microphone of our device, and it processes speech and check it against the list of grammars. This is how much it works. It's actually pretty much everything. And it is important to note that in Chrome, the speech recognition involves a server-based recognition engine. What it means is that you need to be online for the speech that you send to be processed and recognized. And in theory, it should be working with your default speech recognition of your device. But this is only theory. That's why in Chrome works with their I'm not spoiling. I was almost spoiling something, but that's coming soon. So let's go over the configuration. So you would need first to instantiate the speech recognition controller, and you would need to you have several properties for configuration, for example, max alternative. And the interesting thing about it is that it allows to define how many words, like in this case just one, which is default, but I could get an array of strings with the recognized words that the service would give me back. Then interim results, pretty much, it let us receive results when the service has not been done yet. So when the speech recognition result final property is false, we can still get some results in between. So it let us do a lot of interesting things, especially with max alternatives and interim results, if we're doing more of Elasticsearch to really get more granular with the results. And the lang property, let us, like the name says, define the language. When it is not specified, it uses the HTML lang attribute or the user agent language settings. And one of the most important aspects, it is grammars. So I'll be talking a lot about grammars because they're very important for our speech recognition. And the speech grammar list represents a list of grammars or containing words and patterns for the service to understand. And in this application, I'm using RxJS observables. We are not covering them today, but pretty much what we're doing is a data stream with all the grammars. But instead of giving them all at once, the observables allows me to give them over time when the application needs them. And so basically, we subscribe to those grammars, and we pass it to the add-to-string method, which takes the grammars and a second parameter, the weight. That would be there, the weight, which says how important are those words that we're giving the service. And to understand why grammars are so important, we need to talk a little bit about NLP, or natural language processing. If you're not familiar with it, natural language processing, it is the idea of computers analyzing human language and making out meaning out of it. And if you think about the speech recognition API, that is all about it. It is all about NLP. And the underlying problem is that language can be ambiguous. And a word can have many meanings. And this is what makes natural language processing so hard to get right. And from my experience, the German speech recognitions, they just don't get along with me. When I'm speaking to Alexa in German, it is so frustrating. You cannot even imagine. Like, English is better, but I realize speech recognitions work better with your native language, at least for me, maybe because of my pronunciation. And if we really want to be inclusive, we need to understand, we need for our application to understand what we mean. What are our intentions? And there is still a lot of work that needs to be done on the field, especially, I don't know how it is in Russian, but in Spanish or in English, we combine a lot of like Spanish and English, and we're talking like Spanglish, and it gets very difficult. And for this example app, I thought the Alexa intent was a good source of inspiration. And it helped us kind of tackle this ambiguous problem, the ambiguous, or the language, or what I'm trying to say is, it helped us solve the problem that the language can be ambiguous. And by providing our speech commands or our grammars a list of utterances of what we think the user could say, that could help us a lot. And you can think about it as an easy way or a manual way for us to try to tackle this problem. And there is, of course, more sophisticated solutions using machine learning, but this is not in the scope of this presentation. But all of these ideas work very well together. So going back to the intents, we could think of the application I show you. We had like a start page, and then you have the playlist. So we could think, okay, how would the user interact with it? Maybe he would say something like, go to playlist, or show my playlist, or even consider OK list or call list, because the service sometimes returns like the most random things. So you might want to consider them too. So this would be the equivalent of a simple JavaScript implementation of intents. So it has a type property, and it has the samples. And the samples is an array of utterances with all the words we think we need for the service to understand. And of course, the action that triggers the function that should be triggered with that command. So we registered the intents by passing them to the register intent method, which internally passes the values to the abstract command. And what it does, it takes care of receiving, administrating, and triggering the actions related to this intent. And I would like to make show you a small demo how this would work, and hopefully it would work. So we log in quickly. So like we said, we define the intent. So pretty much we have this interface for our voice. And I will get a little low, not that you wonder, because I need to talk to the microphone. And I would say something like, go to playlist. So it receives the transcript, and it's like, OK, I'll go to the playlist. Or I could say something like, go back. OK, that was too soon. Go back. No, home, sorry. Go home. Right. And like I said, we can consider errors. Like, for example, if the service understood call list and not list, call list. OK, one more time. Call list. OK, better. So we're going back. So we have our intents. So we can navigate through the app, but we eventually want to actually play some music and stop it, and we will cover that. But to get those things working, we need to take a look at the speech recognition methods. And the first one would be the start method, which, like the name says, it starts the speech recognition. And this method, we use it to trigger the service, and we do it by pressing on the mic button. There are two methods too, the abort and stop method. And basically, abort stops listening and stops too. But the difference is that stop will try to return some results of the audio capture until that moment. And then we have the events. And we have, for example, the read-only property from the error event, which is very useful. In this case, I'm just logging some messages. But you could actually use it. For example, when you know the network connection is not working, then you can actually do something meaningful in your UI with it. And the onStart method, which is triggered when the service has started listening to incoming audio. For this app, we're just using it as a flag to let them know, OK, it is recognizing. And pretty much, we're getting very close to the result we're looking for. And the unresolved event is fired. And when the service has recognized our intents and gives us a result back. And we filter the events one more time, and we match the results. And we finally trigger this action. And I think we would have a match, but not that match, more like this match. And we can give it a try. So we were here. So we would want to go to a playlist. So if you haven't seen it, there's a bunch of playlists I have here. The better path is pretty much what I was listening when I wrote this presentation. So we tried that one. So go to the better path. So it goes to the playlist. And then I have all these songs that I collected during the presentation. And so there's all kind of music here. But we can start with something simple, like people. And we would say, play people. And if we go to Spotify, we see it is playing.
People of the night.
And if we go back, I could do all things like stop. So it stops. And we can try something more difficult, like smooth transition of power, just to try to test the engine. and the grammar. So play is smooth transition of power. So it works. Thank you. Thanks. And I hope we still have time, because there's one more thing I would like to show you. I already saw the sign that I only have 15 minutes. And I was so worried because first I didn't have enough time for the presentation, but now it seems now I make it too long. But anyways, I'll try to stay on time. So I think this is relevant for you because it is about languages, what I want to tell you now. And for example, I said that the service works better when I try Spanish. And you can do all kinds of languages as long as they're defined by the IETF, which I recently heard of them. It's the Internet Engineering Task Force, and they are responsible for defining all these which languages are supported. So any language supported by their definition, then it can be used. And I would like to show you very quickly that we can go regional. That means, for example, if you allow me, I will try to use something like Spanish from Costa Rica. And what does that mean? It's not a different Spanish. It's the same Spanish, but it considers all of these accents or forms of expression that we use in this region. So we will try that. We will go to our provider very quickly and change the language. It would be nice if the UI would do that, but I didn't have time for that. I have to start the application again. And so it is running. You see the heartbeat. It's because the application has been down. And we log in. So what's going on? Do I have internet? Oh, it seems I don't have internet. So now it should be working. I hold that. No, it's not. It's not the host. It's the connection. But now I have the cable is a little bit loose. It works in localhost. So we try it again. It should be working. Time's running. So now we're back. I have internet. Okay, so I wanted to show you in Spanish. So if you don't know Spanish, don't feel bad. It's not that great. Well, if you're doing holidays in Spanish countries, can be useful. But we checked that out. So now, here's a playlist just with Spanish songs. And I would say something like agradecido. And then I would try to pick something very hard, like with the apostrophe, with a tilde, would say, como me quieres. And I would say, hopefully it works, toca como me quieres. Okay, we try something else, not with an apostrophe. And this one, for example. Toca en el seno del amor. I was not listening. Toca en el seno del amor. So it works. So what I wanted to show you is this works with Russian too, and with the different regions that you have. So you should try that out. And if you have any questions, we can cover that soon. There's one more thing I would like to talk to you about. And it's okay, we talk about the necessary skills. We talk about how we can configure the speech recognition API. And there's one important thing. I'm hurrying up, I promise. It is the browser support that's important, and it is terrible. But but I have great news. I have great news. There's a bunch of third-party APIs, for example, from Google, the Cloud-to-Speech, or from Watson, natural language processing. And the reason I chose to go native is that I would always prefer to see what the browser offers natively. And we've been working on ideas, for example, like maybe we can start a Puppeteer and have the service started on the in the server and then send it to the client. I haven't tried that yet, but we're kind of like thinking how can make this work. But you can make it work with these libraries. And this project is available on GitHub. So if you want, you can work with it, play with it, break it, if that's your thing, and questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And for other browsers, you can always use WebRTC, stream audio somewhere, and recognize and send back the result. Okay, there will be questions, and you will need to name best questions. So I will give them a book. So please take count, and you are welcome.
Okay, thanks for your talk.
You're welcome.
My question, you showed a video with disabled people,
Mm-hmm.
and their conversation, they have conversation
Yes.
with app.
Yes.
Do you recognize people as person? For example, I speak to something and app showed me Konstantin speak.
Right. So, well, it is important to mention that's not a progressive web app. It is a native app. And we're talking about the web speech recognition. That means it is possible. You have to build it. So you have to put the work to make this app work like that. So the speech recognition, it only takes like you speak to your device, it sends it to a recognition engine, and it returns a result. And what you do with that, it is up to you.
Okay, thanks. And second question, do you have Siri support with native app?
With native app, I couldn't help you with that. I'm only a web developer, so
Thanks.
I couldn't help you with that. Sure.
Hola, Mauricio.
Yes.
Thank you for a good talk.
You're welcome.
Could you please tell a bit more about speech grammar list? Does browser already have it, or we should create it ourselves? Or what
The grammar list, it is a controller tool that you need to instantiate to, and you pass it down to the speech recognition. So the browser provides it, and it is actually just a list of words, but it makes sense to start thinking more about how the user is going to interact with your application. So how you provide this list of words, it is up to you too. But it is, in my recommendation, to have a second thought. How would you provide them, and in which manner? Yes.
Это подсказки для распознавалки.
Thanks a lot for your talk and
Yeah,
research.
thank you.
I want to know your opinion about, does it really need to include those web APIs and accessibility ways inside your app? Or maybe the right way to make like Chrome extension for that? Like there is readability that can change the color and contrast of the text on any website. What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, that's very opinionated, and that's a really good question. And well, I think kind of like both, but it is an assumption. And what I have learned from accessibility, and I learned that from Manuel, who actually helped me a lot, he does a lot with accessibility, is we shouldn't make any assumptions. Like, we don't know what is the user, who is the user, how is he interacting with them. So if we have control over the application, I will always include all the accessibility standards that we can, and we'll try to build these features on the application because you have fully control on it as a developer. That would be my opinion on that.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for a very motivational speech. The important question for me is, how do you justify to the stakeholders the cost of work needed to be done against the very small part of the population that will benefit initially from it?
Sure, that's a really great question too. And money and time, it's always a thing, especially if you're working with client services, which I do. So basically, accessibility should be always considered in the beginning. And there is like this factor multiplication that you can do. If you not include it in your project at the beginning and you do it at the end, you can multiply the cost of implementations to 100, as when we developers are planning the application in the beginning and we're taking the extra time to do accessibility on it. So you have extra costs, but back to your question, that actually don't answers your question. How do you explain that to stakeholders is, well, you have to try. You have to try and
and never give up.
and never give up. And I don't know if I hope this don't get me in trouble, but a lot of times when the client don't pays us for that, it's like we're doing it anyway. So you have to find that way how to do it if it's important for you. So fight for it, and usually the teammates are like that, and you try to find the time for it. And the initial time, it is not that much as when you do it later. You just have to plan for it on the beginning.
Thank you.
Коллеги, я полагаю, у нас осталось время на один последний вопрос. Чей это будет вопрос? Все уже все спросили? О, круто как. Thank you again. Please, one more round of applause.
Thank you.
And now really hard thing. Which question should we grant this book for natural language processing?
I'm so sorry, I don't like to do that. But I found both last questions like really good. Can you give 2 books? Like
I have only one. I'm terrible.
Only
sorry.
one? I hate picking. So
I do.
Yeah, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. No, I like him. I'm sorry. Don't take it personally. I love your question too.
Oh. So, whose question it was? Him?
Yes.
Please.
Sir, there. Thank you. Thank you for your
And
question.
last but not least, small token of our appreciation for your hard work coming here.
Thank you very much.
You can stick this to the wall and this to drink something hot to remind you about our conference. And you can, and I think you will, speak with our guests at our coffee point.
I will.
Please welcome to Coffee Point.
Thank you. Thank you.